am demonstrating visual thinking strategies, teaching methodology while we do this. So I want you to sort of do double time. Watch what I do as teacher, because from the beginning to the end. So what I'd like you to do, some of you haven't had a chance to do so already, but is to look at this for just a minute or two in silence. What's going on in this picture? Yes?
It looks as though people are in an art gallery. Some are there walking around, observing the paintings. Some are receiving instructions. Some are perhaps copying some of the paintings that are on the walls.
Can I just stop you for a second? Let me just ask you, what do you see that makes you think someone's receiving instruction or some?
Well, I'm thinking perhaps this man who is leaning over the woman who is sitting. I mean, he may be giving her instruction, he may be simply observing her, but he has his hand over her shoulder, so maybe he's pointing out something to her that she may need to do or pay attention to.
Okay, good. So the way he's leaning, the way he's attending to what she's doing, and the way
of the hand toward the canvas that she has that she's holding.
So you think that maybe he is offering some instruction to her.
Yes.
You said you thought maybe someone was copying something? What did you see that made you say that?
The man in the left-hand side, seated, yes, it looks as though he may be copying one of the paintings. Although for right now I can't tell which one. Maybe he's filling in the background. Yes.
Okay, good. So you think that maybe he is, in fact, sort of painting something, but you're not quite sure what he's looking at.
Exactly.
But the fact that he's sitting there looking like he's painting, he might be copying something that he's watching. Okay, great. What more can we find? Yes?
I think it's an art class because there are portfolios leaned up against the wall.
Okay, so the whole thing might be a class, and that the instruction might not just be going on here, and your argument for that is thinking that these portfolios are around, so that these might be art students? Mm-hmm. Okay, good. What more can we find? Yes?
It took place a long time ago.
What did you see that made you say that?
The clothing that the men and women are wearing, hairstyles.
Okay, from a combination of clothing and hairstyles, you're thinking that it's a long time ago, back in the olden days? Mm-hmm. Okay, good. Good, what more can we find? Yes?
The way the paintings are hung is very unlike the way paintings are hung today.
Okay, so you mentioned that you thought they were in a gallery kind of space, and you're pointing out that their paintings, kind of hung differently from how they are today. What did you see that made you say that?
Well, they're all stacked on top of each other, very close to each other, and the styles are very mixed.
Okay, good. So the fact that they're so close together, that they're going all the way from the floor to the ceiling almost, and that there seem to be sort of different kinds of styles.
Or
periods of painting represented, draws a distinction from how museums work today. Good.
I was perfectly willing to grant that the center of the painting leads into a new gallery, and so I was interested in the light and how light it is in that further gallery, but how this room that we are in seems to be, I can't find the light source.
Okay, good. So you're thinking that this is not a painting, but in fact you're willing to sort of think that it is in fact another space, and you're interested in the fact that it seems to be lit differently from how the space of the room where these people are working. So you're noticing that, and you're sort of wondering, in fact, how this room might be illuminated, whereas you can sort of see light sources.
Going into the further space, that there are frames on the walls on the left-hand side, hung on the walls also. So that looks to be a gallery space also.
Okay, so something that may be easier for people who are in the front row to see is that if you look really carefully in here, you can see that it looks like there are some framed works there too. Also, it seemed to be tilting forward. I just added that piece. But so arguing that also might be another gallery space. So there are two possible ways of looking at that. Yes, Sue, and then go 1, 2, 3.
Well, you can see people actually looking at the artwork as well and scrutinizing what's going on in the galleries. You can also see some sculptures too, I believe, over to the right, very faintly.
Is this where my...
There are people, yes.
Maybe here?
Yeah, maybe those are people.
Okay, good. So, okay, again, more careful looking in here, you sort of see that there may be people who are as spectators, as we have some here in that room, and maybe also some more sculptures. So, adding to the arguments that might be more museum space. Okay, good. Is it Kathy who's next? No,
Oh,
one.
I'm looking into what I guess is the hallway, the next gallery.
Got here? Or,
Mhm.
yeah?
The person to the left of the man carrying the hat, he seems to be leaning up against a pole looking, or a railing looking at the artwork. And so it's interesting that the second gallery, the further gallery, he's away from the art. There's some sort of a rail to keep people from the art, but in this gallery, the viewers are closer to the art and being able to interact and draw the artwork.
Okay, sort of maybe drawing a distinction to say we've thought one idea for this is that it's in fact a school kind of thing, that it's really set up for instruction, but there don't seem to be any barricades, and it seems, again, looking very carefully here, that there might be some stanchion kind of thing that's keeping this guy away from the wall. So maybe the galleries do have different functions, which maybe gets back to your argument that they are different, but
At the beginning, when we were talking about is that a gallery or is that a painting? In fact, everything going down, if it's in fact a hallway, are arches. And that's the only thing that's rectangular is the actual frame going into that space.
okay, good. Now that confusion that we were having about whether that was brought up is the possibility about this being is it a painting or is that in fact space that's receding from it? You're sort of saying, drawing our attention to the fact that as it goes back, it seems to be a series of arches. However, this is squared off. So you're wondering maybe whether that arguing that maybe this isn't a doorway into another room because it seems to be framed in the same way that the paintings are framed, that kind of thing? Question there. Okay, good. Yes. And then,
Do we know the title of this painting that might help us?
well, how do we find that? How would we know what the title is?
It's usually yes.
It's really interesting. Well, in this case, it happens to be way over on that wall. And it says Samuel FB Morse's Gallery of the Louvre, in my perfect French, which I'd already explained to you, I understood, of course. Now, what does that tell us?
Well,
What can we learn from thinking about that?
There we go. We know now where it is.
Okay, so we can locate it. Where is the Louvre?
Here.
In Paris. So that answers your question. Sort of, it is in Europe, at least according to the title there, and maybe in Paris. All right, good. What more can we find? Yes, Ken.
I was really interested in the arrangement of the people actually in the gallery here, and the fact that there's a lot of intimacy here. We have the central figures, and I look at him, I don't know that he's a teacher because there's an intimacy of the way he's leaning over and he's almost touching her. The grouping in the corner, where again you have the woman who's painting, turning back to talk to the people. The man in the left corner who's painting is facing us, so he's like open and sharing. But then you have this woman who's isolated over here, very private, and you don't know at all what she's doing. I just found that kind of intriguing.
All right, good. So there may be even elements of a little bit of a drama here in a way that sort of, why is she isolated? What's the real relationship between these two? Is he your teacher, or is it a little bit more than that? And sort of, there seems to be some interaction going on here. She's maybe working on this. Is that right? No, what is her?
It's angled. It's just we see
Yeah.
the edge, she's on it.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see. This way. Yeah. There's her. Okay, good. Thank you. So she may be conferring with the people behind her who seem, if I might add, a little bit sort of animated right here. And that this guy is the only one who's actually sharing his work with us. Right, good. What more can we find? You, Dan?
Yeah, besides that it's like an instruction room, it's also kind of, to me, like a storage room. And it's a spot that everyone's not supposed to go in, and the door kind of marks it off because it's not a door that is an arch that welcomes you to walk through the museum. And the way that man is standing there, yeah, that one right there, I think it's a very natural thing that people do when they want to go into a room but they know they're not welcome to go there, is they stand as if there's a barricade, kind of announcing to everyone, I know I'm not supposed to come in, but I really just like to look.
Okay, good.
He's
So,
not doing that.
so linking a couple different sorts of things. Sort of, again, the fact that this framing would be very different from the arches that we saw, so that if this was a regular museum gallery, it's it's not signaled by the architecture itself. But you're sort of thinking that maybe this does have a different kind of function. Maybe it is kind of more storage-like, or maybe it's more about the kind of instruction sort of thing. But in any case, getting back to the whole idea, this guy looks like he's not invited into this space. And we've talked before about how these seem to be not looking like they're not necessarily able to go in there, so that he's constructed an artificial barrier because he knows he's not supposed to go someplace. Okay, good. What more can we find? We haven't heard from you. And then, yes.
As I'm looking at the man with the turban doing his painting, it could be from where I'm sitting, I'm seeing a glare, but I'm not seeing any picture that corresponds on the wall to what he's creating there. So is he in the room for inspiration? Is he in for copying? I mean, what is he getting from being in this room if it's not instruction directly from one piece of art?
Okay, good. Maybe building in a way on this argument that the people who are in the room aren't paying that much attention to what's going around, or perhaps can't even see it that well. But that looking at here, you're not sure whether it's glare or not, but you can't necessarily see, if he's copying something, what would it be among all the things that are up? So you're thinking that maybe he's there more for inspiration, or that it is a school kind of thing, maybe more than it is about the art in the room? Okay, good. What more can we find? Yes?
I was curious, because as we're sitting here, there's also a picture on the wall of one of the pictures in this painting. Actually, there's two over there.
Where is that one?
That painting's third one up from Mona Lisa.
Oh,
to
yes.
the left. Yes.
Okay, so in the wall of the gallery here, we have a reproduction of this particular thing. So
Yes.
go on.
And on the wall of the gallery, it also says that it's Samuel FB Morse reproducing paintings. So is this his imaginative artwork? Is this the way the Louvre was?
Okay, good. Well, so all right. So now, referring back to text, labels, that kind of thing, we know that this painting, in addition to knowing the name is the Gallery of the Louvre, it's painted by Samuel FB Morse. And sort of you're wondering, your question, one question is, was he making this up, or did he actually see it? So it's sort of another way of understanding why it might be confused. I mean, another point that might be made in terms of trying to explain some of the oddities we see about it. They may have perfectly logical historical explanations, but they also might be because it was coming out of an artist's imagination. Well, you know, you've done an incredible job, it seems to me, sort of not only observing a huge amount, but drawing lots of different kinds of conclusions. We raised a couple questions. There are certain things that we don't know about it that we could find out various different ways. We pulled in certain information from the text that were around the room and from the label. But you know, I think I'm totally impressed with how you sort of pulled visual information from this and sort of made us think about it in many different ways. Thank you. All right, good. Now, so I gave you a second assignment. The first assignment was to look at this thing, and you did it brilliantly. The second thing I wanted to do was look at sort of what I was doing as teacher. So I want to talk about what I did as teacher up here and why I did whatever I did. Right? So, Sue.
You validated everybody's observation with, that's good. Let's see, your exact words were, okay, good.
Okay, good. So, okay, good. Okay, good. So I validated, and is that the only way I validated what people said?
No, you also reiterated. You said again what everybody said, and I found positive language.
Okay, there were at least two ways in which I validated what people said. I would say, okay, good, said it to everybody. So nobody was left out of that okay, good kind of thing. And then I also reiterated what people said. Now, what would be the purpose, number one, of validating? Why would I care? Yes.
So that people felt that
Annie?
what they said was worth saying.
Well, why do I care what people have to say? I mean, you know.
If you gave me a response that made me feel like what I said was wrong or stupid, I wouldn't be talking anymore.
All right, good. So why is it important for people to talk?
Otherwise, you don't have a class.
Well, you don't have I mean, there's no game going on. I mean, so if nobody will participate, if nobody discusses. So it's important if you want to have a discussion about something to create an environment where people feel comfortable voicing their opinion. And if they feel valid and credible and so on and so forth, they're much more likely to do so. Okay, great. So I did it two ways, at least, that reiterating. And I want to talk about the reiterating more, but I see some hands in the air. So, yes.
You don't impose your own opinion upon what we think it should be.
Okay, good. So therefore, I'm not offering the expert's opinion on what it should be. Why not? I mean, you know, here I am, the teacher in the museum, and I know all this stuff, and I've learned it all. Or you're the teacher in the classroom, and you spend all that time learning it. And
well, that might demean what we're thinking and stifle our creativity.
it's quite possible that my viewpoint on the matter, even if it's terribly well informed and beautifully said, whatever, might stifle your own thinking and your own set of discoveries. You might think, oh, well, I guess the teacher knows what it's about, so why should I even think about it? It can actually stop inquiry. Does that make sense? It's very, very hard to get that point because we keep thinking we have teachable moments. We think, geez, I want to jump on this, I want to tell them stuff. But if we are, in fact, trying to teach discovery, inquiry, if we're trying to create discussion, then our opinions quite often are stifling. And it's very important to remember that, and it's very important to try to understand why you want to restrain yourselves. Why would I not lead you someplace, Dan?
I think, I mean, everyone experiences it where you go through school and instead of really thinking for yourself, you kind of start playing a game of trying to tell the teacher what they want to hear. So especially with younger kids, the younger they are, the more they want to please the teacher. So if they start picking up any kind of thread to what they think your opinion is, they stop thinking of what they really believe and what they think, and their ideas aren't good enough. They're just trying to guess and show you how smart they are.
I get, so it's like, you know, once you start directing the conversation anyway, either by supplying information or by asking directed questions, you're leading them somewhere, and only some kids will respond. History tells me that others, you know, sort of say, it's like, you know, they're playing, that's about the teacher. It's like, what am I thinking? And that, but the other thing is that sort of the more important point really is that they're not given the opportunity then just to wander on their own, to figure out what's important to them, and to discuss that. They're always going for a goal that you've set for them. But what do they do when you're not there? You know, sort of one of the rules of, I'm going to tell you something, one of the rules of thumb that I have for deciding on whether a question is a reasonable one or not is, would it be their question? Would they ever ask that question of themselves? Okay, good. So I pointed continuously throughout, even if we looked at him, you know, how many times, I'd still go back and draw our attention to that. And as you say, one of the ways that's helpful is that it helps the visual learner, who may or may not be sort of dealing with everything that's being said so easily, but can in fact follow the visual conversation and feel enriched by it. What else, what other purposes does pointing serve? Carrie?
To connect visual and oral.
Okay, good. It's a very direct link between the verbal comment and the thing itself. Good. What else, Carrie?
That's what I was going to say, is you're making sure you're understanding what they're saying.
In fact, it's another way of reiterating. When someone says, I heard what you said, and I can go to there and find it. I heard what you said about this. And I can describe it with my finger. So it's a way of saying, you know, yeah, I understood that point. So, okay, good. What else does pointing do? Yes.
In a discussion situation, it's the only movement going on.
All right, great. It does. It helps to, well, it's the only movement going on, and let me add something to that too. It helps keep people focused on the subject of the conversation. The validation that happens from pointing is important because it's another way of, oh, good is, I mean, okay, good. Reiterating, it's all by itself. But I was doing something with that. I call it paraphrasing. I paraphrase what I hear. Transliterating is another way of sort of putting it. But it's, why would I do that when I could repeat, let's say? That would be an option. Why do I try to find other words for it?
It shows reflective listening.
Okay, how about that? It's a reflective process all by itself. Good paraphrasing takes into account everything someone said and only what they said, not something else. And, you know, but it's very hard to do. And that's a skill for us to learn. Listening that hard is part of it. It's, you know, you're not used to it. We don't do it often enough. So we're not carefully hearing what people say, so we're not processing it in such a way. But if you are earnestly working at it, you're not going to put words in their mouths, and you're not going to make them feel like you're correcting them. With kids feel they are being respected, which is part of what you're doing when you're paraphrasing them, when you're validating them, and when they think you're respecting everybody equally, and when you're actually not the center of it, you're just facilitating it, when it's your opinion that's important, and your opinion that's important, and your opinion, that this sort of respect factor even makes it so that you can disagree without being rancorous. And that is not a small thing with kids today. So if the teacher is working really hard to understand you, you can feel for that moment that they actually care about you in very critical ways. You may or may not be reversing the role of parent, of teacher and student, but they can feel that it's my idea that's important here, not that teacher's. So, and that feels very good to them. BTS is a way of teaching in museums or elsewhere, classrooms too. It's a way of teaching about art objects because art objects are so full of meaning. They have so much going on in them. There's lots of room for interpretation. There are tons of things to observe. That's what they are. the playing field becomes level. And everybody's got really interesting things to apply to this. So in a way, what we have found is that in any conversation, most kids feel that they've succeeded in this activity. But all kids grow.